We're talking about what I believe to be a basic human right. I am literally sometimes having this idea rejected because we are not sponsoring DEI projects at this time, my lady. And I will say it. I will say it, Corey. And if people want to cancel me, just cancel me. Where I came from, people, they're afraid of investing. They think they have an us versus them mentality.
Right.
They're like, we're poor, they're rich. We don't do rich people things because it's not for us. It is truly a mindset thing. And once you start changing that, you can really change people's lives. Like, I'll tell you a story. My parents, they didn't have a house. They bought their house 15 years ago when I had a conversation with them and said, you have to stop renting.
Okay.
But that's not for us. Like, we're not the type of people who buy. Like, we rent. And I was like, said who? Said who?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, I mean, that's what all of us do. And I was like, no, we're going to find a house you can afford and you're going to buy a house. And then I helped them and they bought a house. They were like in their 50s, late 50s when they bought their first house. That house, Corey, appreciated over 1,000%. My parents just sold their house like maybe 2 months ago.
Huh?
And they're so happy. And they just bought another place like that is going to be like their final place because now they're in their mid-70s.
Yeah.
And they were flabbergasted that they own something that appreciated over 1,000%.
You know, and I think and that's incredible. You know, and by the way, congratulations to your parents. I'm so thrilled for them. That is something you touched on just a short time ago when we were talking about banks and looking at sort of how banks can provide both, you know, the actual, just the ability to borrow, the ability to understand what you're doing, but also in your case, taking some of that emotional intelligence and applying it in a better way. And maybe that's a good segue to sort of talk about, you know, like we all talk about financial literacy, we all talk about technology. Do they actually go together, you know, and how do you, or how do you envision them kind of bringing together so that people can accomplish like what your parents did?
Right. So let's start with the first, like with the banks. Part of the work that we're doing now with Ozzie, we were so fortunate to have been accepted into a program called Fintech Sandbox. And that is also part of the other answer that the other question that you answered that you asked me about, oh, how were you supported programs like that, right? So Fintech Sandbox, they're giving me access to data partners for 6 months for free. So some of those partners like Plaid, TransUnion, Equifax. I am working with TransUnion and Equifax, and we're crossing Aussie's money personality type model, right? Our money personality types with credit data to see which money personality types are more or less credit worthy, let's say.
Yeah, okay.
So we're using psychometric data points to now come up with, I don't want to say an alternative credit profile or metric, but it's a way to help lenders use a complementary assessment, especially for people who are credit thin or don't have traditional credit metrics, right?
Yep.
And that's the type of work that financial institutions and lenders can do, right? Because let's say when I moved here and I was an immigrant, right? I had no file. It wasn't even that my credit file was thin. I had zero. No, like inexistent credit file. But now, if they have my assessment, And they can start saying, like, Paula, oh, she's a stockpiler, meaning she's very security oriented. The likelihood of her defaulting on a loan is between, and then we give a percentage, right?
Hmm.
That's the type of work that we're trying to do with partners like TransUnion and Equifax and offering that to lenders.
And I'm thinking about, and I don't want to stereotype anybody. I'm thinking about myself and how I spend and how I can get easily go off board. Must have this, must have that. No big deal ordering that extra pizza or ordering in tonight. And other people who have a different sort of focus and discipline and a different long term objective. And everybody has different kind of approaches to it. And so, what it sounds like to me is that even though banks and credit providers are aware of this, they don't necessarily have the tools to help people navigate that in an efficient, smart way. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
Huh.
That makes total sense. And that is the second point of your question about financial literacy.
Yeah.
The thing with financial literacy, I'm not against it, right? I see organizations here in the US like NAFLE doing a phenomenal work with financial literacy, right? Using myself as an example, I didn't get any financial education. Why? Because my parents didn't know better. But I have 2 points here. One, everyone, literally everyone, Corey, knows the basics of what to do with their money. Meaning, you know that if you make $100, you shouldn't spend 200. I'm saying this as somebody who grew up very, very poor in an inner city. Everybody in my neighborhood, I can go back right now. I can ask them, like, hey, if you make $100, do you think you should spend 200? People are going to laugh and be like, nah, like, of course not. But they still do it, right? So it's not, people might not know like how to budget properly. They might not know financial vehicles and investing and all of that. But the basic tenet of don't spend more than what you make, every person knows that.
I'm going to challenge you just real quick here for 1 sec, right? Because I want to sort of articulate this for our audience. Now, and maybe we can define it a little bit. So I'm thinking about, let's say you want a car, right? So you don't have 40, 30, $50,000 to buy a car. So you are going to figure out what those payments are going to cost and whether you can afford that piece. Even your phone, right? So you have your iPhone or whatever, your Samsung, and no one's buying the phone outright because that's kind of silly. They depreciate anyway, but you're figuring out, okay, well, I'm going to pay X number of dollars a month. How does that fold into your, and you've said this, it's a hill you die on. You don't want to spend more than you make, but how do you put all that together?
Yes. So here's what we do today with Ozzie. The budgeting aspect, and again, I have nothing against budgeting. I personally am obsessed with budgeting. You can ask my husband,
I
it drives him nuts.
think we
But
might.
most people and our users, when we interview them, that's not what they wanted. So Aussie is not a budgeting app. What we do is a very simple plan. You tell us your expenses, you tell us your goals, you tell us your income, and then we'll create a plan for you that says, here's where your expenses should be, here's how much you should allocate towards your goals, and here's what's safe to spend, right? So, in the case of the person who wants to buy a phone, we would actually, and I am in that school of thought, that depending on your finances and all of that, you're better off saving to buy that phone and save a little bit every month.
Yeah,
And then you buy your phone, then putting on your credit card and having the interest on your credit card because you're not going to be able to make the payments anyway.
that makes so much sense. So,
That
yeah. What you're talking about now, I just sorry to interrupt, but I think what we're getting into is what you have referred to as behavioral money automation.
That's exactly it. And then here's how it truly works. Corey and Paula want to buy a phone. We both make the same amount of money. We both have the same expenses. The math of how much we should allocate to buy that phone and how much it's safe to spend, it will vary if you and I have different money personality types.
Wow.
So, two people that make the same amount of money and have the same expenses but different money personality types, they will never get the same plan because we know that the way that you feel about money and the way that I feel about money and think about money, it is different. And that's where the magic happens. So, for example, if I value security and you value status, we're going to help you buy that phone much, much faster.
Hmm.
Much faster.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, and I guess, one of the other questions I had was, when thinking about all of these, I mean, it's incredible when you actually think about, like I said before, financial literacy and sort of knowing not only what you are able to do when it comes to borrowing and spending, but also what resources and capabilities you have versus what your emotions say, what you actually want, and knowing like how to do that and do that smartly. It's different. I mean, I guess for me, the question is that something that you truly feel is unique, and are you able to really convey that to the people that you're looking to partner with Ozzie?
Right. So what we have been doing and in terms of like next steps and vision, we in terms of partners and convincing partners, up until now, Aussie has been very manual, right? So using the example of the phone. So on the weeks that you get paid, you get a notification from Ozzy saying like, "Hey Corey, it's time to move $30 towards your cell phone goal." And then you have to go into your bank and move that money. The vision, and I'm hoping that's something that by the second half of the year it's going to be live, is that we're going to partner with a bank and that bank will be like Aussie moving money around. So you're no longer going to even get a notification from us. On your paycheck, we're automatically moving that $30 from your phone.
Huh.
So right now, we don't have to rely on your willpower for you to move money toward your goals.
Right.
We're going to do all of the calculations. Like we know how much money's coming in, we know how much money's coming out. We put some guardrails and margin of errors because there might be some, something that might happen here.
Hmm.
We, Aussie, will move the money automatically, but Aussie is not a bank, right? So we need a partner bank to be able to move funds around. And that's the vision. When I was talking about a self driving experience of money, that's what we mean by it. It's going to be emotionally intelligent, self driving. And then all Corey needs to do is just sit there and wait for a few months. And then you're just going to get a notification saying, like, "Hey, Corey, here it is. It's time to go get that new phone." Why? Because the money's ready for you.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, look, I mean, we all know this. Everyone has this feeling. It's like, well, gee, when am I actually going to know that I can and should do this, with my money? How do I know how to kind of, come up with all these different percentages and worries about rainy days? But I want my new, hat, or it's really cold and I got to get a new pair of gloves, or the air conditioner broke, or whatever it is, right? It's life. But you're right. But with how we decide about look what we do and how we make those decisions, it's behavioral.
It
Yeah.
is behavioral. And the other part that we didn't touch as much today, because I don't know how much people will be interested in it, we're still testing it. We have some money mindset lessons. So, for example, we ask you, like, what messages did you receive growing up? So, it is more like cognitive behavioral therapy and they all take 5 minutes. I would say that millennials will love that because we love everything that's related to mental health and just like revisiting our trauma. I know millennials will love that.
Hmm.
And then they do it and we give them rewards. So basically, like, we'll match your savings if you do X many classes. We'll give you, like, if you end up with 100,000 points, we'll send a Peloton to your house. So we're testing that kind of
Oh,
stuff,
that's cool.
but I still am not sure who is this appealing to. Is it
Hmm.
older generations, younger generations? When I have an answer, then you can have me over again and I can share the lessons learned.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good. There was a couple of questions I do certainly want to get to. I know this has been a wonderful conversation, and I appreciate it so much. But like just to sort of try to get a little bit of formality around, where you're at. I think one thing I really wanted to hear from you, and that I hope our audience can hear, is what is a commonly held belief that you actually disagree with out there?
I think we touched on it
I think we did,
already.
yeah.
It is the whole financial literacy. I think it's the belief that people would do better financially if they had more access to financial education, right? Financial literacy is important. We've talked about it. I am not against it. But knowing what to do doesn't necessarily translate into behavior, right? Like,
Hmm.
knowing how to budget doesn't necessarily translate into following that budget. There is a gap between knowledge and action, and the gap is mindset, it's attitudes, it's your values, it's your beliefs. And that is the gap that we're trying to close with Ozzie in this whole category of behavioral money automation, right? But we have built an entire industry on the behalf that if we just give people more information, they will do the right thing. And I personally don't agree that that's true. I think, and again, I don't want to criticize those people, but I just believe that that is a very profitable industry. Like, the
Yeah.
financial literacy industry is a very profitable one. Look at all of the influencers selling courses on Instagram. Look at all of the financial gurus selling books. It is very profitable for them, but people are not getting ahead financially.
No, and I mean, again, not to belabor it, but you could also look at financial literacy as, obviously it's an education. People generally speaking are intelligent and they can grasp these things, and they should know sort of the rules of the road, so to speak. But on the other hand, some people are better at arts, some people are better at science, some people are better at different types of things, and finance is not necessarily one of them. And I'm speaking about myself right now, so. I mean, I think that's probably also fair to say, no?
I think so. I
Okay.
think that's fair to say. And like I said, it's not that financial literacy shouldn't exist. That's
Right.
not it. Like, it's almost like three pieces, right? Like, we need the knowledge. People should know what to do, but they also need to change their deeply held beliefs about finances in order to be able to implement the knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask just, a couple of other quick questions in terms of, where you kind of see the money and technology landscape right now. Clearly we're in what, third, fourth year of AI. Anything that's AI is, the big place to go to invest. There's all these sort of very generalized terms and ideas about where things are going, automation being one of them. Where do you see kind of the current environment right now and how Aussie fits into that?
So, in the personal finance management or in the broader landscape of
Yeah, no,
finance?
let's go. Well, I'd say both, but then let's talk more about personal finance because I think that's a little bit more. Interesting. Yeah, it's more about individuals.
Yeah, so I see a lot happening with in the financial literacy space. There are a few cool things that are happening there in terms of, again, financial literacy, knowledge, creating AI, using AI for more personalized solutions. So you can see, like, I forget their name now, but they're using AI to personalize people's portfolio. They just raised, I see, I think their name is Fridge. They're creating like community.
Hmm.
So it's more like content and community based personal finance, community centric solutions. And I think that era of just budgeting, I know there are still like the faces of the players have changed, right? Like I think the largest players now are Monarch and Copilot. They use a lot of AI, but they're using AI more to like categorize
Yeah.
transactions. But I really see people shifting, like there's a very specific personality that uses budgeting apps, right? I am seeing what I'm seeing more now, and just to move away from personal finance in a bit, um I am seeing this bigger push towards infrastructure and using AI to change the infrastructure of things. That has been the big discussion in the groups that I'm part of,
Hmm.
and really kind of like, what does that mean? Like, if we're going to build better solutions and more effective solutions, should we take a look at what's under the hood? So, a lot of the discussions that I've been having with peers um, have been around that as well. I think financial inclusion is coming back with a force because of AI. So people are kind of like, okay, wait, if AI is just data and it's data that is being built on based like past data that is predicting new things, what does that mean for unfair practices, right?
Hmm.
Are we just becoming more efficient at being exclusive, like at leaving people out? So I have been on a panel about like AI for inclusion, and now I see the financial inclusion folks really seeing like, if we don't fix the structural problems that we had before, AI is going to make this really bad for a lot of people. And a lot of people that we're talking about is underserved segments,
Hmm.
right? Because
Hmm.
it's just going to accelerate how fast we keep excluding underserved segments.
Yeah, which again, I mean, hats off to you and to what you're trying to accomplish with Ozzie, peripherally, but obviously it's a main focus, which is about inclusion. It's about making sure that that 99%, as you mentioned, really has the tools and the ability to manage their lives and to spend the money the way they can and should, or not, right?
Or not.
Yeah, or not.
Yeah. But it's been a very interesting time, what AI is doing, because there's the AI hype cycle, which is obvious, and that happens whenever any new
Yeah.
technology comes around. But at least the circles that I'm a part of, it's really interesting seeing people looking at like, okay, let's look at the ramification of this thing, just so we're not caught up in a very messy situation when the bubble um, bursts.
Hmm.
So that's why I threw a few things at you, because those are the conversations that I've been having literally on a weekly basis in different groups like of people.
Yeah. A little bit of a sidebar question. What's going on in your world? What's a controversial topic that you've been, obviously hearing about, or that, that's something that you would like to sort of discuss more?
That's oh,
I'm
Corey,
swear I'm not
when you
baiting
when
you.
you when you in Canada ask me that question here in the US, I'm just like, oh, Corey,
I know, I know.
should we go there?
Honestly, we probably spent the whole hour in it indirectly, talking about the elephant in the room, which is, and I'll say it, it's the war on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's the challenges that people who are immigrants face. It's the difficulty in, like you pointed out, the 1% or even the 5% really getting more focus and attention versus the 99 or 95%. Talk to us about your view of that.
Here's in and I will say it. I will say it, Corey. And if people want to cancel me, just cancel me. Go ahead, cancel me because I fit so many boxes, right? I am a woman, I am Latina, I am black, I am an immigrant, and I am here working really, really hard to do some good in the world. Not only for me, but for a lot of people out there. And when I'm saying like to do some good in the world, I am not talking about, like the greenwashing of the early 2000s. Like that's not what we're talking about here, Corey. We're talking about what I believe to be a basic human right, which is financial security. Not everyone in the world will become wealthy, right? That's not the conversation that we're having here. I'm not creating Ozzie just so everyone becomes a millionaire. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about creating a platform just so everybody has the bare minimum financial security. Just so every mom and every dad out there has the peace of mind of knowing I'm going to put food on the table. I'm going to be able to pay for my children's education. If we are hit with a health bill, our entire lives are not going to collapse. You know why? Because we have a safety net.
Hmm.
Like if my child decides to pursue higher education one day, we'll be able to maybe not pay for the whole thing, but they're not going to start their adults' lives buried in student loans. Corey, come on. That's the bare minimum that we're talking about here,
Yeah.
right? And when somebody like me who's trying to create something like that is literally under attack, right? Because I have to walk into rooms where I'm pitching this idea, I'm trying to sell this to employers. I have friendly conversations with investors. I'm not even trying to take their money. And I am literally sometimes having this idea rejected because we are not sponsoring DEI projects at this time, my lady.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you see where I'm?
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I do. I do. And I think it's incredibly fair, incredibly valid. At the end of the day, there's always going to be hopefully a revert to the mean, as they say in economics. And maybe we've gone a little bit too far and sort of oscillating too much, but at the end of the day, I know you, I know what you're trying to build, I know what you're trying to do, and I think equity and inclusion is really what it's all about. So
Right.
yeah.
And I honestly don't want to make this a partisan issue,
Mhm.
right? Let's not talk about politics here. Let's really just like be human beings and let's look at the ideas. Do you know somebody who's trying to create something of value? You listener, right? Like, do you know somebody who's trying to create something of value? Do you know somebody who's trying to bring something to the table? That's what we should be measuring people on, right? And the other thing that we talked at the very beginning of our conversation, look at everything that somebody like me had to overcome just to be having this conversation with Corey. I had to learn a second language. I had to get literally 2 master's degree just to be able to break into tech. I had to work like 80 hours a week as a nanny to pay for school, but I still ended up with credit. There are so many challenges that minority groups have to overcome just to have a shot at creating something good. Let's not shut them down. Let's not shut them down. We're not asking for an extra opportunity or for people to make things easier for us. That's not what we're asking. We're just asking, like, let's not shut people down and let's just keep creating good in the world because that way everybody wins.
So if
I said my
Ozzie,
piece.
no, I mean, and that's amazing. If Ozzie can play a small part in getting that started, where can people go to learn about it, to download it, to try it? Like, where's the status at with Ozzie itself?
It's Ozzie, Ozzie
Hmm.
app.com. But if for some reason you can't find Ozzie because it's misspelled and all of that, just Google me. It's Paula Machado Jackler. I am literally the only Paula Machado Jackler in the world. You can't miss me.
Thank God for that. Yeah, no, it's true. But Paula, I mean, honestly, it's been such a pleasure to have you on. I hope we've covered at least a little bit of, I think this is incredibly fascinating stuff, and I just wish you all the best. And I look forward to having you on to hear more about updates in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. You know, you are one of my favorite people in the
Aw.
world. And you always have, so much to offer. And you're always so grounded. And every conversation with you is a delight. So thank you so much for having
And
me.
there's no bias there at all. This is completely, there's just complete, factual journalistic integrity at play here. Just saying. Anyway, Paula, thank you so much, and and thank you to your husband and to your dog for putting up with you for an hour and change and letting you talk to me.
Yeah, they're the best. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
And now for the legalese. The information provided in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial investment or legal advice. Always do your own research and consult with a licensed financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and all investments carry risk. The views expressed are those of the hosts and the guests and do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organizations.